Welcome back, viewers. Today I have a young lady with me and we're going to continue with the interviews that we are doing to diabetic patients. Welcome, Mutsa.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we happen to share the same name. Okay, Mutsa, what does your name mean and how would you like to be identified in general when people think of Mutsa?
Okay. So, unlike Mutsa, my full name is Mutsawashe Chipuriro. Well, when people think of me, they should just visualize smiles.
Okay.
Actually, I'm always smiling. So when they think of Mutsa, comes with a smile. Okay. So Mutsawashe means God's grace. Yes, and I have one name. I think my parents were just like, okay, we're happy with this one.
All right, Mutsa. So when were you diagnosed of diabetes and which type do you have?
Okay, so I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2014. I remember I was 16 years old. Yes.
Okay, viewers, remember in our previous episodes on diabetes, we mentioned that there are types of diabetes, the main types being type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 being having an early onset in childhood and type 2 being of the elderly. So Mutsa happens to be having type 1 diabetes. What symptoms did you have at the time of your diagnosis? What had happened?
Okay, so I had excessive thirst.
Okay.
I would feel really hot.
Okay.
Every time. I remember this one time I had basketball practice at school and I had to go by the tap just to get water over my skin because I was feeling that hot. And during the night, I would frequent the bathroom a lot of times. And also I would eat a lot. So I would eat a lot and then let's say I eat at 9, at 10, I'm already hungry and I need more food. And I wasn't eating a little bit, a whole lot of food. So those are some of the symptoms that I had.
Okay, so if I got you very well, you had excessive thirst, frequent urination, and excessive hunger.
Yes.
Okay, remember these are the 3 classic symptoms of diabetes. Okay, so is there anyone in your family who was diabetic?
Yes, my paternal side, my paternal grandmother has diabetes. She has type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
Her brother, he then passed away. He had type 1 diabetes. So it's the paternal side.
It's from the paternal side.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you manage growing up, if I may say, considering when you were diagnosed, you were diagnosed at 16,
yes,
you were still in school,
high school
and so forth. How did you manage? Did you hide your diabetes from people at school? I understand. Did you break or something?
Okay, so for me, what happened is when I was diagnosed, I was actually going to school. So my mom notified my class teacher and then she told the rest of the staff members. So all I had to do was then remind them, okay, I need to maybe go and have a snack or something like that. But I remember there's one time, it was break time. And then we were sitting in a whole huge circle of friends. Then one of my friends was like, so if we invite you for a party, what are you going to eat? And then I was like, you just make sure there's something that I can eat. You know, if you have a lot of muffins and cakes, I would just be there standing and not eating anything because it was really early in the diagnosis stage. So then I got so overwhelmed, I froze. Because then I was trying to then explain, no guys, you're supposed to then have something so I can eat, and I froze and I started crying. And I just stood up and I went to the bathroom and I started crying. I didn't have break that day because it was bad. Right now, if I look back, it's a bit funny, but in that moment, it wasn't. So then I realized that you can get a diagnosis and think you've accepted it, but your mind, your body hasn't. And if you're confronted, then you just break down.
So how did your schoolmates know? Are you the one?
Yes, I told them. I really didn't, because I figured if I don't tell them and something happens, who is going to be there to help me out? So from day one, when they said you now have type 1 diabetes, I just tell people and I let them know in case an emergency occurs and they need to know what to do.
I think that was a very clever decision made. Okay, how well do you think you manage your diabetes on a scale of 10?
On a scale of 10, I don't want to brag, so it's all by God's grace. So by God's grace, it's an 8 out of a 10.
Okay.
Because usually when I go for the 3 months check for your hyper HbA1c, yes, it always comes back between 4 and 6, and the GP is always like, wow. You're managing your diabetes very well. A lot of people come in, it's very high or it's too low. So ever since now, it's been the 6th year, my management has been good. So I just want to thank God for that.
So why did you give yourself a 10 though? What happened to the 2?
You can't do it all. Honestly, there are days I just want to have some sugar. So
some ice cream days.
Well, not really. I don't really like ice cream.
Okay.
But let's say I do go out with my friends and they buy ice cream. They can buy, but I'll tell them, guys, I won't finish this. It's too much sugar. I will just eat a bit and then someone else finishes off. So that caters for the 2 out of 10 that I know I have days where.
Okay, which we hope you will improve. You need a 10 out of 10, right?
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
do you find it necessary to test your blood glucose levels? If so, how often do you do that?
Okay. The early days, I would test every day, 6 times a day.
Okay.
Because my doctors say, I had like a whole diary. I would record my readings and the food that I would have had. So I would test before I eat, and then after I eat, like after 30 minutes, you're hoping that digestion is starting and all that, then I test again. But now, because then glucose strips are quite expensive.
Okay.
So you can't be, for me, I cannot be testing 3 times a day every day. You can't, it's unsustainable. So when I feel that something is wrong and it could be the blood glucose level, that's when I usually check. Let's say I get a headache or I'm just feeling.
So you don't do it every day?
I don't do it every day anymore, only when necessary.
When you start having some symptoms.
Yes.
Oh, okay, it's okay. So what do you understand by the term hypoglycemia? Okay,
Hypoglycemia is a state where the blood glucose level is very low. So there's this range that medical people say this is the right range for the glucose. If it's below that range, then that is hypoglycemia.
That's hypoglycemia. Okay, do you know of any symptoms of hypoglycemia?
You feel very weak. I know I do it sometimes. Let's say I go to bed and maybe my supper wasn't wholesome. So around 12 midnight, 1 a.m., I wake up and I am sweating and I'm feeling so weak. I can't even get out of bed. And sometimes you shake. So now I have sweets available. So at least if I can get out of bed and reach out for a sweet, then slowly but surely the glucose starts to rise.
Okay, that's great. Are you on any medication, Mutsa?
Yes.
Okay.
I am on insulin injections.
Okay.
So I have 2. I brought one of them.
Oh, nice.
So this is a pen set. This is a Novorapid Flex pen. This is my short-acting insulin. I take this one with my meals. So every time before my main meals, I take it so that it then absorbs the glucose when I'm eating. Then there's the other one, which comes in a green tube, which is my Levemir. That's my long-acting. I take that once a day in the morning. And then, so I take 5 units of this one 3 times a day. And the long-acting Levemir, I take that once daily, 10 units.
Okay. I see. Now a pharmacist.
I'm an expert. I'm an expert.
Okay. Can you take me through your diets on a given day?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I've just decided to keep my times consistent. So from when I was going to school, because I had to be at school around 7. So I had to manage my eating times and all that. So I wake up at 5:30 a.m. That's my first medication time for my long acting, because I was told I have to take that one 30 minutes before my first meal. So 5:30 I wake up, I take my Levemir. 6 o'clock I'm taking my Novo Rapid. Then I have my porridge. I have sorghum porridge. That's been me ever since I was diagnosed. And then around 9, 10, 11, it depends, because then sometimes I'm still feeling okay, but I still need to snack, because snack times are important. They then push you through your next big meal. So around 10, 11, I snack. I usually take a fruit, maputi, sometimes groundnuts, just whole grains. And then around between 1 and 2, I'm having my next main meal, which is my lunch. That's mainly like my regular full meal now. It has your carbs, your veggies, and all that.
So your lunch is your biggest meal?
Yes, it is. It's my biggest meal. And then around 4, 5, I have my end of day snack, because then I take my supper around 8. Because sometimes I would come back from school late. So if I put my supper time at 6, it wasn't working. So my supper time is 8. And then if I have that, then I take my medication again at 8, and then I have my meal. And if I'm still up, let's say I'm studying and I'm doing something that's draining energy, around 11, I snack. Then I go to bed. So that's my day and my meals.
Which is okay for a diabetic. So moving on to the issue of exercise, on a scale of 10, how would you rate yourself?
I'm a 7 out of a 10. Yes. I used to have a lot of applications. I'm sure most of us have applications on our phones for exercise that they don't use, because I also didn't use mine, because it was just exercising by yourself. It's just so much pressure. Sometimes you're not motivated and all that. I understand. So I run. So I downloaded another application, but this one is for running, and the way they do it is it's quite motivating. It's called the Nike Run Club. So I use that. So there's a coach who's talking to you as you run, so you don't really feel alone. So that has pushed me. So in a week, I maybe run 3 times. So yes.
What's motivated you to do this exercise thing?
So they do encourage you as a diabetic patient to exercise, because they say exercise helps the insulin uptake from your medication. And also sometimes you just feel like something is amiss. I sometimes get like pokes in my chest, and it doesn't feel right. So I'm like, okay, if I run, I think something will change. So that has just given me the strength so that I can maintain being healthy.
Viewers, remember, exercise is a very important entity again when it comes to lifestyle management of diabetes, as well as the diet, to complement your medicines for those who are on medications. What is the hardest part of being diabetic, Mutsa?
Carrying food everywhere I go. I promise it's a hassle sometimes. Like maybe sometimes you just want to carry your wallet and leave the house, but I can't afford to do that because I don't know what awaits me where I'm going. Maybe I'm going to be there for longer than I expected. So I need to have my food and I need to have my medication. So that feeling of having luggage sometimes, that is just draining. And also I genuinely like telling people that I have diabetes so that they know if I say I'm going to eat, they know I mean I need to take my meds and all that. But then deciding where to place my diabetes story, like at which point do I tell them, oh, by the way, I'm diabetic? It's it's a struggle for me, you know. So that has been the hardest part, placing my diabetes story.
And what's the best part?
Oh, the best part. So I was diagnosed in 2014, right? And I always wondered, is there someone out there who has type 1 diabetes, who is my age? And you know, I can relate to them and all that. And I did not find anyone. 2017 one of my friends from church mentioned, oh, you said you're diabetic, by the way. I have a best friend and he's diabetic. He also takes insulin injections. I'm like, you're joking. I need to talk to that person. So then I texted him and then he was like, oh my gosh, I've also been looking for someone who has diabetes. And we just clicked, and it was good because you need that support system.
Yes.
I mean, yes, your parents then buy your medication and all that, but in most cases they don't really then ask, okay, so how are you feeling? So when you take your injection, it's painful sometimes. How are you feeling? So you just need someone who relates with you on that level. So finding that guy, and now we're like very good friends, that has been the best part for me.
Okay.
And also just upgrading my responsibility skills, because managing your diabetes and adhering to medication and times, you need to be organized. So that has really improved some of these soft skills that you need as an individual. So that has also been a plus.
Interesting. So you know the statement which health professionals say, they say we treat, God heals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can you relate that to your experiences, if you can?
I think I can, because medication, it can balance what's inside. But let's say you get medication and your system is rejecting it. At that point, what do? There's nothing that you can do except look up, because now then God has to be in control so that everything that you're doing works, and even inspiring the doctors to prescribe the right medication, the doses with no complications. The only time I've been in hospital was the time I was diagnosed. I was in hospital for a week when they were trying to regulate and stabilize the sugars. Ever since, I've never been in hospital on an emergency and whatnot, and I can only attribute that to God's grace. My mom is always telling me, I'm always praying for you. God, she cannot have any complications. So I believe that God has been doing all this to keep me healthy and alive. So I can relate to that statement.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mutsa, for sharing your experiences. I'm sure it has helped a lot of people who are listening, and they feel they're really not alone in this diabetic fight and so forth. Our viewers, thank you for being with us up to this point. Goodbye, till next time.